Another VFX tutorial. Do mesh based. Should it be black? Don't worry. Oh. Cool. All right. I think our levels are good. Sound pretty good. If not, I'll just redo it, I guess. All right. Let's get it started. So what are we doing? Is it the right one? Is it the right one? Do this one. Anyway, this is something I had always wanted to try, and then I saw it like in game, and I'm like, why hadn't I done this? So working on some visual effects. It's Kritika Online. It's like a character action online Korean MMO situation. I don't know what you call them. Let's see. Thought I had it. Get a good view of it. Is that the right one? An example. Well, I know where an example exists, and it's here. Thought I had the right one uploaded or ready to rock. Sorry about that. But today's tutorial, it's like a redo of one I've done before. It's pretty popular on YouTube, so I thought I'd do another one. Oh, right, of course. It's like if you like load your game right away on Unity, like you first install it, it's like it's not done loading everything, it gets mad. Anyway. So it's mesh-based visual effects, usually for like slashing effects like that. But as you can see from the front view, these look way doper. And that's what we're getting at today. You can see that right there. There's some like volume to it. I thought they were doing some like shader stuff. I was thinking about like, and they might in Rising. You can see it's like a big wedge. So we're going to be learning about the pros and cons of that. One of the main things is that you can't have like, you have to use the mesh for the edge of it. So you can't like use your texture, but you can. And we'll get into that. Let's see, do they show it? Oh, I closed that. Anyway, we'll just get it going with this. So we're opening up Blender. Default, I like to delete everything here. And this will be nice because it'll be a new way to show how I make them too. So we're gonna make sure cursor's in the center. By default it is. Do Shift A, add a plane. The circle we're gonna do is 32 sides. You know, you can make it as big as you want. Hit Tab to go into edit mode. Control R. You're gonna type in 30, the regular numbers. You might be able to use the number pad, I'm not sure. Left click to confirm that many, and then right click so it stays centered there. So we have 32 lines here, edges. Oh, we should at least. 64 verts, good. So now, pull this over, hit T, close that, go to the image editor, hit A to select all, U, unwrap. We're going to drop all those in there. I don't know why it rotated. And so it's like, what am I trying to say here? It's going to be preference, how you want your textures to be laid out. I feel like I make a mistake and it's like different each time I do it. So anyway, so next I'm going to go here and do based on the 3D cursor. So now any transforms that you do are based on this 3D cursor. That's why we wanted it in the center. So now what we want to do is make it sideways like this. So rotate 90 degrees. gonna bring it all the way down. Well, no, you know, to line up with the center here. We're gonna grab just those top two. We're gonna go to top view. I'm gonna hit Alt O for proportional editing, or you can just click it down here. We're gonna do linear. So if you haven't used proportional editing, what it does, it like does it based on like a distance. What am I trying to say here? It's more like you're squishing clay around, like you move the vertices, and it's based on this ring here, which you can control with the mouse button. And we're gonna go like that. This is off a little bit. When I did it earlier, there was no problem. I think I need to shrink this down. So the issue was that I need to make it just 1 unit wide. And it won't matter vertically because we're projecting straight down, so it just kind of doesn't matter. The reason... Actually, it might matter. I might need to shrink it up. We'll see. Then we'll do that. Bring it in. So yeah, it does matter. Alright, sorry. Scale Z 0.5. Dude, I just did this and there was like no issue. So anyway. And I'm holding control, and you can see now that the proportional part is like lined up perfectly. So now we have this weird thing. So we're gonna hit A, S to scale, Z for Z axis, and then 0. So now it's all squished up like that. So I just got a text. So that's just another way. So like in the past, I would just do like a circle here. Like we just do Shift A, add circle. You know what I'm saying? Oh, look at some weird stuff going on here. Oh my gosh. Why did it do that? I mean, you can kind of see it in there. Oh, I brought this down too far. That's my bad. So if you see, alright, just here we're actually in the center. I don't know how I did that. So just scale Y0. Could have been because I had proportional editing on. Actually, I think that's exactly why. So make sure you turn that off when we like shrunk this down. Alright, let's try again. Alt O, turn it back on. Rotate around. Boop. A, scale Z, 0. So now we have, you know, this. But you may want, like, generally you have like a gap there, so you can do like Control R. But then if you look at your UVs, that's kind of messed up. So you go all the way back. Make sure to line up in the center here. Grab that edge. Alt right click. G Y to grab. Turn off proportional editing. Although, alright, G Y. And we'll just go up. It's hard to see because the line's right there. And we just went up 1 unit. I guess it's like 1/10 of a unit. I'm not sure. And then just kind of depends on like how big you want it in general. I'm gonna go up 2. And now, Alt O, turn it back on, proportional editing, roll it around, hold Control so it snaps. A, select all, S, Z, scale on the Z axis, hit 0, go back in. So now we're like that. And the reason we did it like this is because the unwrapping is much more smooth. That's what I was getting at earlier. If you can do it where like you do a circle first, you just do Shift add, circle, F32, hit E to extrude, make sure we're editing based on that, then scale it down. Then you have that, but then you have to unwrap this. It can just be kind of confusing with like, because then you have to like mark a seam, and then unwrap this, and you get this, and so you can do like cylinder projection, but then you get that, and so it's like, okay, let me grab this edge, pull it up, cylinder projection, let me grab these, You can see it's just like a little bit weird, but if you prefer this way, you can do that too. There might even be even better ways to do this. And so you have that, right? That's just another way. And you may think, well, that was way faster. Well, maybe that's a better way for you then. But I think partly it's because I've done it that way before so many times. Alright, so this is what we had been using. A lot of people use these. We have, you know, just like a flat circle. That's what we want to do. Instead, I wish I had an old example now that I think about it. But I'm not sure that I do. Very good shot. There we go. You can see, you know, we have this wedge. It's like this. So it gives us some thickness there. So we're going to grab this, grab Z, pull it up like that, and we've already unwrapped it. So we can just hit A, Shift D to duplicate, scale Z 0, or excuse me, scale Z -1 to flip it. And then remove, oh my gosh, flip normals. And we're gonna hit Z to make sure it still looks kind of whack. Control N to normalize those. And depending on the shader, like I have it too, like the shader I use renders to both sides anyway. But you can get in some weird like overlapping issues if you don't do that, where like this plane, like back underneath here, will like draw on top of stuff over here, even though it's behind. It's weird. I don't totally understand it. I'm sure some smarter people can understand it, but some peeps in the chat. Thanks for joining us. So now let's drop a texture in here. So give an example of, well, we'll just use the one in here. So one of the things with this method is that, oh, I didn't mean to stop, is you'll get a lot of overlap in the rendering, like I talked about, like that one, like drawing over it and stuff. Get a better shot. Whoops, wrong move. And the glow doesn't show up in the editor mode. It's because I'm using it, not the default Unity glowing methods. What was I getting at here? Oh yeah, the overlap stuff. So let's grab this shader instance of this material, rather. Again, this is all based on Unity. It can work for anything, you know, but some of the terminology I'm using is going to be Unity focused. So. But one of the things with this method is that you want, it often looks better if you use opaque effects, because when you get rid of that opacity, what do we got going on here? Go on to the next track. No, that's a bad song. Just a little distracting with this. Because you're drawing so much, it gets like really blurry and stuff gets kind of washed out. When you're doing like the single disc, you can kind of get away with that a little bit more. But when you have that wedge, you kind of get this nonsense here. So just something to keep in mind. In that Kritika game, they do the same thing. Where is it? Oh, it's not on there. Anyway. But they do the same thing. There's lots of like opaque rendering. Just ends up looking better. Not to say you can't, just something that you should keep in mind. So I mentioned how you kind of lose the fact that, here, I'll show you what I mean. So let's say we had this. And so one of the benefits is that it looks really good in all directions, right? It's like in the game, let's see here. Get a better angle. You know, you get these cool slash effects. Whoop! Fell off. That look dope from all these angles. Let's see, get like one. It's a little not great. Looks pretty good though. But a trade-off of that, like I mentioned, is that this edge can't be a texture. Because normally, like with that flat disk, you can do stuff like this. Let's see. It's gonna let me. Yeah, turn the animator off, I think. Because it was controlling the values, I couldn't change it. Still can't? Gotta turn you up too. What are you doing to me? I don't know why I can't. I shouldn't. Why won't it let me? Oh my god. Alright. I'll just do it from here. Sub live. Anyway. If we wanted, we have to open this up. You can have like you can texture the edge basically. This is really long-winded, I'm sorry. Oh my god, I do this so much. I have one in here already. So you can have like a softer edge. So now you can have, oh, I don't know why that did such weird stuff there. Those aren't great examples. What I should have done, I was not thinking. Just grabbed a new texture that I had already done. Let's see one of our old ones here, like this. So you can have these like softer edges here. The shader isn't exactly best for this. And have these soft edges, but then from the side you get this, right? And so what they did in that game I keep mentioning, and I found that like just doing this, especially with like a glow shader, it gets rid of that because you can glow and like soften those edges. That looks really nice. Thank you. But there's a few things you can do. One is that you have both, and that's what they do in that game. So they have this, and then they have this. Scale this up a bit. Excuse me. What's going on? I'm getting some weird things. I don't know what's happening. Something weird's happening. That was really weird. Anyway, so they do this, and generally, like, your thing's gonna be way bigger. Like, if you looked in the game, like when I paused it, like my wedge was like really, really fat. So the idea is to give yourself like some space. Anyway, what they do in that game is that they have both. So they extrude that down and then scale that in, and so they have this. And so you have like that thickness there, but then you can have this like soft edge without having like a glow shader or whatever. So here you'll have that, and then, you know, when you're seeing these edges, you can have this softness here. As an alternative, you can grab that. I'm gonna remove doubles. Cut in here. You'll have to well, I guess there's two things we could do. You just do multiple cuts here. Like this one. The reason you do loop cuts and then delete the loop cuts is because you don't have to project it here. You can just keep that. Then you'll have this. It's a little bit off. I don't know, that might be right. And then X. Delete vertices. D, scale Z, -1. Put normals. So we have that again. And then we grab these edges. So those are the new cuts we did. We scale Z 0. So now we have that same thing. But instead of like having two things, like I'm not sure what their textures look like, you just have one. And so now, like, you know, anything you draw down here will be, you know, just this part right here. And so you get it, there's a trade-off with like some of the effects you can do, because if you do any like scaling, like UV scaling, which is like, let me show you here. How the effect gets thinner, you know, as the animation goes on. Like it starts fat and then shrinks down. You get into some troubles there, because what's happening is that you're pushing from up here, you're like pushing the texture down, and so you start to get stuff that's in this flat part here, and then this edge right here, one of the key things is to keep that really bright. So you see here, oh, that's a bad angle, but if we look at our texture, you know, I just have pure white right here. It just helps the effect look good when you're seeing it from the like extreme angles like this. So that still looks nice. You have that gradient there. It looks sick. But you run into issues where, you know, like I mentioned, that won't work very well. So having two, but then that's two objects you have to do like when you animate. So that's just something to keep in mind. So in my previous video, I also talked about a more advanced one where we'll just show the effect first. I'll get to see all the new stuff too. Forgot what I named it. I changed the name. Maybe I didn't. Why is there so much of this? I did something weird there. Alright. So like that, right? It's looking pretty dope. So this is a special one. Not only have I scaled it, like just, you know, crunched it, but like I've done in a previous tutorial, is that we assign these, let me delete these, distracting. This edge to a bone, and then the inside ones to a bone. And so what that lets us do, because a lot of you won't have seen the original one, doubles. I won't actually assign the bones, because we'll have the example in there. Well, I guess I could show it. But it lets us do things like this. So scale it up, drag it down here, scale the whole thing like that, and rotate it however we want it. So now we have effects that follow this. So that's what we have going on here. So if I bring it just in there, where's the new one? Here, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see how thin it is. And I'm not doing much like UV animating. I wish these... Unity used to show the mesh better, but now it does something else. We can see how thin it is down here and how thick it is out here. That's because each set of rings is assigned to a different bone here. And so, you know, I can control this inner loop, I control this outer loop like that, and it lets us have different, you know, shapes that let us do some cool stuff. It's a little more complicated. You have to set this up kind of weird. There might be better ways to do it, I don't know. But it gets you some really dope shapes. Like that attack just looks really sick. Oh, I forgot to save it. Like that. Looking dope. Show a better angle. Like that. And again, like, you don't have to do much animating. All I do is slide it along the UVs. So I suppose I'll get to that now. Do all those changes I did. So what are we actually doing with that? If anyone has any questions? It's like, what are we animating? So how I do it is based on the UVs. This is another reason for why I favor that. You don't have to do that. You can just rotate it, right? And it's perfectly fine. And there's some things that are actually nicer with that. It's like with this one, we have this, and in our animation, we're just rotating like this, right? But what I do is animate the UVs. So these are our UV offsets. So the difference, I mean, some effects it's not going to be a difference. There are cases where you'll run into issues doing one or the other. One of the reasons I like this one, the main one is for this. So when we roll along our UVs here, we follow that shape effortlessly, right? Like, look how sick that is. I only have to animate one thing, and I get these dope shapes with like no effort. And it's like, it's animating, you know what I mean? It's like going from thin to thick to thin. All I do is animate this one thing. You know, I do more to make it look extra nice. But with just that simple effect, it looks sick. With here, you know, you're not getting any of that when you're just rotating. But you just might be more familiar with that. You won't have to deal with a shader or a material, which can be a huge benefit based on, you know, your own setup for your game. Some of the issue is that you have to remember to animate along here and then do like how you want the thing rotated with its parent. Because if you don't, you'll think that like you're rotating like from here to here, but you actually get is like these weird rolls, and you're like, what is happening? Like, that's not what I wanted, because it's going like just directly to it. And I think you can change like how it animates the rotation model. That's what it's called. But I'm not sure how to do that in Unity. People keep saying it to me, but I'm like, I still don't know how to do it. Let's see. I thought there'd be more. I guess we could just go real quick and animate one. Delete that. I'm gonna make sure none of my shaders got messed up. Materials, I guess, not shaders. Oh yeah, we'll talk about the shaders and stuff too, actually, now that I think of that. Yeah, I think that's fine. sometimes when you mess with the materials, it'll like change the very starting frame. Because even though I've animated it, sometimes like there's some things you don't necessarily set in the animation, so the default, like when it first appears, can be changed, but it looks like it's okay. So there's that. I will go ahead and just show that real quick since this is tutorial. So what you would do, select these, go to vertex groups, add, I just call it inner, and you click assign, so everything selected will be assigned, and then just to make sure, do select. It's like, okay, good, those are all selected, those are what we wanted. Make sure this is one, add a new one, outer, assign. Then we're going to go back into object mode, do shift add, we're going to do armature, we'll just start with a single bone. Here just kind of is like preference if you want it like down in here, because it's all going to be relative in the end. So it's like where it starts doesn't always necessarily matter too much. Again, this is a little more advanced, so it can be like, you know, just difficult to maybe just know what you're doing, basically. Grab that. We're in edit mode. Object mode. Edit mode. We can do Shift D and just duplicate that. Move this inner. Did I? Hold on. I goofed. Actually want to. I'm having a, just kind of forgetting how I did this. I haven't rigged something in a long time. We have our armature, and then inner and outer bone. What was it? I don't know, it did something weird for me when I did that. Alright. Go ahead and add that. Let's go back in object mode. Just gonna delete that because it's being weird. Shift add, Shift S, cursor to center. Also, it was already there, but just could have it. Single bone. I know what I did. I added a new bone in object mode rather than in edit mode. So Shift D. So now it's all under here, which is what we want. I'm going to rename these inner, outer. You can also do it here by just selecting the bone. It's going to seem a little confusing in here because they're like right on top of each other. If it's a problem in edit mode, you can, you know, rotate one down. If it's easier for you to remember. You get some weird things here. Again, it's all relative, so if you have some weird roll stuff happening here, you know, you can just fix that or whatever. But in Unity, it's going to depend on like what you develop in. When we export this to Unity, it's just going to be set up like this. And so all we have are these transforms in here. We don't even like see the bones, you know what I mean? It's not going to show up like this. It's just these invisible points that we mess with ourselves. So anyway, go to object mode, we're going to click that. Actually, we're going to right click our model, our mesh, shift, right click our armature. Do, is it just P or is it Control P? Control P. We're going to do armature phone, armature deform. Where is it? Automatic weights. Should be this one. Oops, not Alt Tab. Control Tab. So yeah, that didn't work quite right. There's one that you can just do it based on. What's happening? Still parented. Trying to undo it. Just Control Z and went. There it is. No. There it is. Okay, Control P. Did it backwards again. So you remember to parent the mesh to the armature. There's one that's just empty groups? Is that what I wanted? I thought there was one that was just based on vertex groups. We'll just do empty groups. Okay. Go to pose mode. Grab that. Okay, cool. That's the one. That's weird. So anyway, when you do empty groups like that, it looks at your vertex groups, which is based on the mesh here. Click here. We named inner and outer. So not only was it important that we named our bones that, for just, you know, understanding, for us, it automatically assigned them. So when we go to pose mode, we know that these are assigned. You know, that's the inner, that's the outer. Get a better view of that. So like that. Scale it out, things like that. And then normally you'd save that. I'm not going to save it. It's just identical to this. And whenever you drag that just into the scene, again, I'm only familiar with Unity really for third-party, you know, game engines. Drag it in there. It's already set up here. You just go to the armature. Any scaling and stuff you do is already like built into, you know, those vertices are assigned to these bones. Sorry, there's a weird shader on this. Excuse me. Was that it? All right, cool. So now I have that. You can see, you know, the default one is pretty skinny. So, like, you know, I personally do a lot of scaling, like from the get-go, like this. Actually, you wouldn't want it. Well, yeah, that's fine. I thought I grabbed something else. And then, you know, you can do simple things like this without having to use like the inner and outer thing. But to get those like unique shapes, then you would go like, a good rule of thumb too is to make sure these are scaled with the same aspect ratio. It doesn't mean they have to be like the same size, obviously. But if you have like your outer one that's like a long ellipse like this, and your inner one is more of like a perfect circle, it doesn't create good looking motion. I know, just trust me on that. It's hard to show it here. That's why I say just trust me. I guess just to close it out, we'll just do one. So we got air hazard mat. We'll go ahead and duplicate that. Control D in Unity instead of Shift D. We'll call it tutorial VFX mat. And then alright, I'm gonna go ahead and Control Z in here because I forgot what it was called. Alright, cool. FX cylinder there. Tutorial FX. By default, when you just drag a Blender file in here, it just adds an animator because it had an armature on it. We're just going to remove that. So we might want our animator somewhere else. See, the actual mesh is here, and the armature is here, and they're going to be separate objects. So even though these are controlling these, they're not necessarily parented to it. It's a little bit different, I guess, in Unity. Or let me rephrase that. It's like, I mean, okay, say it a third way. Like, I don't know how or why. I would assume normally this would be parented, but it's not. but this is the circle. You know, we try and move it, we can't, because it's controlled by the armature. But just know it's like going to be a different object, and that's where your rendering is going to be. In my own stuff, I have some scripts on here to help control the animation of the visual effects. One thing I do is like, there's just like a power setting here, like intensity. And what that does, you know, obviously it gives us an easy way to just fade it in and out. But in those scripts, I do things that like will control the glow along with that. Sorry, my camera's really far away. Where are we at? Over here. So you can see there's a bit of a glow there. Whoops, I didn't have your other mat on there. Yeah, X mat. So anyway, so you can see as I change the intensity, that glow's still there. It's really hard to see, but I make it so like the glow is tied to that. I don't know. That way you don't have to animate two things. It was a long way of explaining that. Alright, so it's starting to get a little complicated. Again, this is based on Unity. We'll slide this over. Already, this is a little whack. These are all default these. Kind of want to do your best to have like your main one here just all zeroed out, because like when you instantiate it, you know, you don't want any weird stuff. It's like, let's say you had scaled this out, you know, like this, but then when you instantiate it, you sort of have like, you know, your implementation defaults everything like this. I mean, you can change it. You can look at the prefab and like instantiate it based on that, but it's better to have like some, you know, pivots. So we're going to create an empty here. Just name this pivot. It's just going to give us more control here. So we're going to grab both of these. Oops, why did it? Got mad at that. And that's fine because we don't want. Actually, want to make our own new prefab. So now I have that. If we drag that in there, it's going to be like that. We have that. See here, it's pretty like thin. So again, we're gonna start with our pivot here. Why that happened? That's new to me. I'm gonna make sure these work still. Yeah, they're fine. Maybe they don't even have to be parented, whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. So your first step is like, just think of the shape of like your attack or whatever. This texture here has been really nice. I've been using it for a lot of stuff. Just go ahead and keep that. I don't like how bright that is there. So again, you know, you want to like increase the opacity. It looks better for these effects. We'll go ahead and do that. That's really nice. Getting some good. You know, even though this is like super dark, it's important to make sure you have a little bit of color in there. You can use other things like intensity and stuff to, you know, alter that. Like if you don't like the color is what I'm getting at. Another nice thing with intensity is that you can blend between complements. Although you can get some white in there. Instead of like stuff getting grayed out, you can see it getting kind of gray. The intensity, you can kind of like push that to the next level. This isn't like a good example, these colors, but it lets you not lose any saturation. I don't know, it's just nice. I sing the praises of We'll do this blue of the intensity setting a lot. Go ahead and slide this closer to our camera. We have to switch back and forth again because it doesn't, the glow doesn't show up necessarily in here. What's also nice with this glow shader is that it's like you may have seen a lot of glow effects, you know, in a lot of modern games. They use HDR rendering. It means high dynamic range. What that does is that, you know, normally you just have an RGB value on your final output to the screen here, you know, for each pixel. But with high dynamic range, it means you can go higher. I think the limit's 5 instead of 1. And so that means when things go higher than 1, it's like, okay, that's like super hot or super bright, and so it should glow. And so it's like a really clean way, a really unified way of creating glow effects. So then you take those values, and it's still like a post-process, like you lay it on top. That way things can glow over stuff. But I actually like this sort of just glow shader that it's on the Unity asset store. It's called MKGlow. It's whenever something shades, it sees if it has like MKGlow values in it. You know, whenever an object is drawn, basically, that's what I meant. And it will do an additional pass to like draw to a glow layer, which is then applied later. Anyway, the great thing about that is that you can actually have just whatever color you want. So this glow is actually based on some other things in here, like the values that's already being drawn here. You know, the value and shape of the texture. Try and get this closer here. But it means you can get this cool thing. I think it looks great, where you have like not the right color. So you get these cool blends. I just think they look so dope. You have stuff like this, so it gets kind of rainbowy. So generally, from my understanding, you can't necessarily get that with HDR. You know, it's based on the texture. Like it's just gonna glow this out. And then we also have like power settings for that. Again, what's nice with power or intensity settings is that you can take colors that have a good mix of all the channels. Like if the channels are staggered like this, and as you increase the intensity, the actual color kind of changes. So let me show you. Like if you started here with just like yellow and change the power, it's still just yellow basically. But if you dip down a bit in here, maybe even add a tiny bit of blue, you know, we start with like a low power, it's pretty cool. Let's actually cool it off a little bit more into the red. Maybe even darken it a bit. But as we increase the power, see how yellow it's getting? And then you get these edges that aren't as intense, and so they like retain, you know, the oranginess, and they're like blending with the blue different, and it's like you get these like way more interesting effects. Like even like in these AAA games, you know, see all this HDR, but it's just this really boring like flat cyan or yellow, like for you know, like city lights and things like that. You know, like you see, I'm thinking of like, you know, the Gotham games or whatever, and they have, you know, these dope gorgeous like cityscapes at night, but you know, some of the blending like with the light is just kind of boring. And again, this is not naturalistic, like this is stylistic, so it may not be something you want, but that's one of the great things with an intensity setting. So what it's doing is just multiplying this RGB value, you know, 28540. Actually, no blue in there. So you want to keep it super saturated. Keep one color out, because that means it'll never get lighter. It can't go to the left at all. It can't go to white. But if you add just a little bit there at high intensities, you'll get this softer like light effect. But you can see it's starting to turn right over here. So it just depends on what you want. So, you know, emission power as it goes up. And if we had a little blue in there, it actually gets super white, even with just a little bit of blue. And you can see we still have some reds down here. So it goes from red to orange to yellow to white. And so you get this great range from just a single color. This is the only input color. It's just really dope. So anyway, I'll explain that a little bit more. I'll do a tutorial about this shader next week. I'm going to be trying to do Wednesdays as like my tutorial day. It might end up only being bi-weekly or is that bi-weekly? Semi-weekly? Is that the same? Anyway, every 2 weeks, but maybe every week. It might only be every month though, unfortunately. That's how busy I get. Anyway, we have this in Unity. To control an animation, you need an animator and you need an animator controller, which is kind of a pain in the butt. That's why some people still use the older animation thing. You can just throw an animation on there. So let's just go ahead and create animator controller. Call it tutorial VFX control. I usually have a naming convention for everything, like in the name, because I generally don't use folders that much because it's just like, okay, what do I want? Well, I want the controller for tutorial controller. Okay, it's just right there because you can just type it in. Just, I don't know, it's just a really great thing for about Unity. And then if you hit, click on the object, the asset, X out the search, it'll take you to that folder with that thing selected because I want to be in there and I want to create an animator. Oh wait, that goes on the object. I'm a silly goose. And so we'll go here. You can do it on this parent one. It kind of, there's some like pros and cons of like where your animator goes. I'll go ahead and just pop it on the pivot maybe, because again, you want to keep this sort of neutral. So any like dynamic rotate, that's another thing. It's like animations are strict. It's like at this time, this scale is going to be 1, and at this time it's going to be 2, period. But if you have a parent above it, you can do additional scaling on top of it. Actually show this real quick. So we've scaled the top here, the parent. And if we rotate it, you can see it's like we're doing like a linear unscaled rotation, but because its parent's scaled, we get some unique effects, you know what I mean? So I'm not rolling along the UVs, I'm actually just rotating it. So that's another way you can not animate UVs and just do the rotations instead. And I'll show both. Did I do it all the way up here? See, I made a terrible mistake. I meant to do it just in the pivot right here. Scale it out right here. Like that. Anyway. I'm going to add component, type in animator, and then controller, type in tutorial control. Again, that's why it's like, do you even need folders in Unity? Don't want any of this stuff. Just leave that alone. So now, if you don't have it already, go to Window, new animation. I think if you don't have it in there, it pops it up, like in here. I like it down here because it's like a long and skinny thing. You can see, if you want to do that, I'll show you the difference here. So like on pivot, this is where our animator is. It says to begin animating pivot, create an animation clip, because we already have an animator. We go up here, it also says create an animator. So if you did that, I believe it adds an animator on there. But we don't want to really control this. We want to be able to control this part in game without the animation. Again, because animations are super strict. And that's again why you would have scripts on there. So it's like, the animation controls like the rotation or whatever, but then you might have like an external, like a script on there to like alter it a little bit, maybe create a little bit of randomness. So it's like, the scale equals animation scale plus or minus like an offset. Anyway, let's get to it. So we go and create. There's other ways. You can just like right click, in there. It's already where I want it. Tutorial /VFX Annie. Well, that's my naming convention for those. So then it just pops it right in there. So we're gonna go click up here, click on this, click global. That way I know where the actual front is. So when this instantiates, it's actually going to look like this. This is going to be forward. So we want to kind of like fix that. So again, so we have the pivot. Actually, let's also zero out our. Actually have the Y offset a little bit because I'm trying to push it up to that edge. That way when we're looking at it like this, it's like all the way up there. You can already see I have some weird overlap stuff going on here. Sometimes I don't know why it's doing it. See, like that underside ring is like drawing on top. It could have been like the parenting thing. I don't know. I don't know. If I went and fix it, I might mess up another animation. I don't know. There are ways to fix it. I just don't want it to be in this tutorial right now because for the most part it looks fine. That's a little whack. That's actually really whack. Because it hasn't been doing it on the other ones. I don't understand. Anyway, we'll just forget it for now. It could have been the parenting stuff I did here. It could be just based on the shader. Because here it's drawing fine. I don't get it. So anyway, our forward's going to be this way. So our alignments and things like that need to be based on this pivot. So when we're setting up, you know, if our slash comes from overhead or whatever, you know, we may want to do it like this. Rotate it around. So that way, you know, it's coming down like that. We'll go ahead and do that actually. So this will be our default, right? So now let's start animating. Again, I do it based on the offsets here. Oops. You know, I just do that. You may run into an issue where stuff is clamped. So we're trying to rotate and it's like, wait, it's disappearing. So if you have your texture set to clamp, that won't work. In my shader, I actually have it. It doesn't necessarily show it during editor time, but at runtime, X is almost always set to repeat and Y is set to clamp. You can't do that by default in Unity. I don't know why, because it's really easy to fix, like in a shader, but it's just, I don't know. It would be nice. I think it's a common thing that people want. If you don't mind me asking, are you making everything yourself? Yeah, I am. Sorry about the late reply. I'm bad at checking chat. I don't do the music. I hope to work with the same person I did for my last game. They're really, really good. But yeah, everything else I do myself. Pop back in here, go in here, click on the animation window. You can see if you click on another part of it, like if you click on any parent above it, it won't show up. So the animator can animate anything below it that's, you know, parented below it. So we can control variables, attributes, whatever, of all of this stuff below it. Finally, let's get to it here. So, you know, I have my own style of like how I like to do things. Sometimes a bit of like fade in can look okay, but even if you look at like, Bayonetta has a little bit, but if you look at like Soul Calibur, their effects just like pop in. It's generally better. Like if you, let's say you have two versions, and maybe you kind of like that like an effect sort of fades in for even for a frame. But the version where it just pops in like fully formed, like without any like fade in, looks even the tiniest bit better. Do that one. It's like it just looks better. Sorry, I haven't spoken this much in a long time. So there's a few ways to get started. You can hit this record button, and that will just start, and you can see things turn red. It'll just start adding that stuff in there. So now, you know, we want our offset to maybe start here. We'll actually do some tiling. Oh, I need to shrink my inner. Actually gonna turn off that. Forgot on this old one, it's actually I don't want this animated. I mean, the prefab's gonna save it to how I want it, but you know, we don't want it to animate necessarily. It'll fudge up the rest of the stuff. For your game, that is. Yeah. Yeah, just me. So that looks pretty good. Back here, for a while, Unity animations couldn't control materials very well. They've recently fixed it, and I say recent, but it may have been a year or two now. So I used to have to do it where like I would animate a script and the script would control the material. Finally, they've come back with the new like Mecanum system that it like lets you, you know, control this stuff. I'd actually like to default it here. Because sometimes like your animation might not line up with, it's not that important really, but when your animation is on or off, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter too much, but because in the end it's going to animate the way you animate it, but sometimes it can just be kind of annoying, like just seeing it. Anyway, we'll do recording, pop it back here. You know, you'll have your own style of like how many frames it takes. They shouldn't last too long generally. You know, again, I hate to talk in like terms of should or shouldn't, but there's some consistent things you'll see throughout great looking games. You know, and a lot of times these effects just come in and come and go. So we will, and there's like speed settings just built into the Animator. We can just do that later. So it kind of just depends like what you like to see. So anyway, again, you may want it to be like on the first frame, go from like here, and let's say, you know, next frame, it's like all the way over here. It can be a little like weird, and then we'll just have like a follow through where it just like only goes this far. We'll take a look at our curves to show you what that means. You know, it's coming in really fast and then like goes out smooth. It's a weird thing where I think it's just the timing because of the recording and stuff. So sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't. But really, again, like if you look at like Soul Calibur or something like that, you'll have the startup of like the attack, and then suddenly, like right before the impact or right on the impact, you'll have like this big effect happen. And I generally think that looks a little bit better. So like, so maybe your sword like starts up here, and there's like a swing to it like ending up like over here. Instead of like growing the effect along that, just pop it in like fully formed, and then like ease out of it. It just looks nicer. So instead of that, now let's just delete these for now. Go back to the dope sheet view. Oops. Actually just remove these properties. So like on our first frame, you know, we may want it just like right here. And then our follow through, you know, we come a little bit through like that. And actually what I'm going to do, there's some weird issues where like sometimes, I don't know, it's just a Unity thing. I think there's something better you can do, but if you like instantiate on that frame, sometimes it doesn't like update it right away. Thought I could just duplicate that. Anyway, for the next frame, we'll do the exact same thing. That's pretty good. And we can actually do some things to like mitigate that. Alright, we'll keep that. It looks alright. Just pull it back just a little bit. You kind of want like a little bit of that follow through. Like if you want it bigger, you control your tiling along the x-axis. You know, again, based on your, oh, it's not going to work because of our setup here. You know, you can change that in your texture there, like we would like expand that over to the right here. You know, just going, if we wanted it bigger. There's stuff you can do in the with the UVs and stuff, but our seam is like right here, and so normally you'd want your seam like down here, and it's kind of complicated to explain, but we'll just leave that for now. From here to here. So that's looking okay. Depending on the effect, you know, some things are going to look better than others, so it's going to depend on the move, like and the effect you're working for. But another good rule of thumb is fast in, slow out for effects like this. So right now we have, you know, slow in, slow out. So that means that's an S curve. So it's like, you know, it's slow here, and then it ramps up, and then it slowly goes out right here. And so generally, just to make something look good for, like, you know, quick effects like that, you want fast in, slow out. So it's like boom. It's more like that. Honestly, like, that looks pretty sweet. You know, we'll do more to like make it look nicer, but shut up here with the shader and everything. So that's what I was talking about with your first frame not lining up with like the default. So when you actually animate it, it's going to look fine, right? It's just, you can see we got kind of like a weird sort of rhythm with this curve here. So like, let's look at it close. I don't know. Maybe it's fine. It just seems weird. And so what I like is like even more extreme. So it's like, bring this in like that. Go back to our dope sheet, and we will just like really make that last. You can see we got some like bob there. I couldn't see it in here. Okay. Right there, we just need to fix that. Go to this one. And you may like want that to follow through a little bit more. So let's see. You can see it's feeling a little linear there, like it gets to here and then it's just kind of linear. And so maybe now we can actually ramp that up. Now this is up higher. Kind of stops abruptly, so maybe we pull it out even more. And again, like the overall speed we can change later. But that's feeling pretty good. So now, again, you can get some weird stuff with Unity where like, trying to see here. I know I can duplicate these. I've done it before. Or am I a liar? Am I a liar? I swear you can duplicate a key. Am I thinking of Unity? I don't know. Oh, I duplicated it in the scene by accident. That's what I just did. What is happening? Why do you hate me? Oh, there it is. I hit Control D by accident. Anyway, let's do some other common things here. I like to animate this part as well. It can look good without doing this though. So like if you have an effect that just looks okay without it, then don't do it. So this is like the one, oh, it's not the one I wanted to do, not the Y offset, the Y scaling is what I wanted. Oh my gosh. Tiling is what it's called. So do that, just, oh, the key, I guess the keyframe's in there already. So right here, you know, maybe want it to be more like that. And again, fast in, slow out. So let's take a look at our curves. Just pull that up like that. And actually the slow in here, like this S curve, can be kind of nice. So it'll stay fat for a little bit, then it'll quickly get skinny, and then slowly like skinny out even more. And we're gonna really push that. So now you know you have something like that. You might think, you know, I wish it stayed a little fatter for a bit. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. So let's go back in there. And we can either, you know, pull this out, but, you know, maybe we really like that jump, so we'll go ahead and just add a key here and do something like this. So it'll stay fat for a bit, shrink down, and then maybe even on both of these, hold shift so you can select multiple keys. Well, no, I don't want to scale it. That's kind of cool. I didn't know you could do that. You can like scale it. And remember, it's the display on the screen right now is based on its time right here. It's like over here. You just want to like thin it out. So yeah, see, that gives like a lot more pop. Quickly fades out, looking pretty sweet. So I talked a bit before about like wanting things to like appear instantly. There's still like a weird thing with Unity that I mentioned where like when it first instantiates, it'll be the default. Like sometimes the animation won't update the first frame you instantiate it. There's best practices that I am not doing, and that's why that's happening. So I just sort of work around it instead. So know that it's not necessarily Unity's fault, it's my fault, I guess is what I'm saying. But one of the things I do to get around that, pop back in here, intensity 0 on the first frame. I don't have any scripts on there, so I actually do. Oh, I don't have the recording on. So intensity 0 the first frame, mission power 0 the first frame. Next frame, where we want it. Actually want it maybe even brighter than normal. We can animate colors too. I tend to not anymore because my colors are user customizable, you know, based on your sword, and then just based, you know, the player can customize them. It actually makes animating a lot easier too. Go ahead and pop that emission in there as well. We're gonna fade it out really fast, so we're gonna go ahead and like make it maybe a little bit too much here, and then we're gonna go to the end. Last frame, make them 0. And I like to sort of scale them out at different rates so that, find which one is which, intensity. The intensity goes away before the emission does, so that way we have this like faint glow like hanging out. So you have that, and boom. And so you can see the glow is like holding on a little bit longer and stronger. You could even do this. It's all the way faded out, and then your glow is like hanging out there. So now you have something like that. I mentioned before that, you know, depending on effects, like that might look really nice, but like in game, like kind of having them last that long can kind of look bad. So you can see these come and go like really fast. Now that one lasts a little bit longer. You know, it just kind of depends. So you can see the motion isn't great for that one. It's kind of looping around too much. You know, the time where it's fat doesn't last very long because of that fade in I did. So we'd want to go and like fix that. See, it gets like real skinny already. So we could actually go here. Maybe we want it like fat for that long. And then for the X, this one, or Z, I guess. Oh, please. You don't want it to go quite that high. We got a bit of a bump there, so that would look bad. That looks a lot better. And I usually end up making it so like I speed it up a bunch too. I also wanted to show this, much like we have with the Y scaling, how we kind of hold on. Like we do fast in, slow out, but we kind of hold on to it a little bit in the beginning. Like we keep it pretty fat here. A lot of character action games do that with the rotation as well, and it looks great. I am not that great at it yet, but I've only started recently doing it. So I mentioned how, you know, we do fast in, slow out. They kind of do the same thing where it's like they hold on to it for a bit. It gives this nice build up. So it's like it's kind of hanging on here, and then it just like shoots through. It looks pretty sick, especially when you have like you know, an animation effect like associated with it, because then it's like the viewer gets to see like the effect like looking really dope, like, and then it just sort of like, you know, carries itself out of there. So it kind of like poses there for a minute, and it can look really tight. That actually looks better than I thought it would with just a quick like setup there. It just like a motion you don't necessarily see. Well, let me rephrase that. It looks great, I think. So I think my intensity is like way too high here. Readjust these because of that. I think it goes up that high. It looks really bright. Check it out in here. You see, that's pretty dope. You know, you want to like do some other adjustments with it, but it's just so tiny. I didn't realize it was so small. Should do it on our pivot. We'll try changing the shape of it just to see what it does for us. See, that's tight as hell. Oh man, that's sick. So anyway, there you go. You can see in the front here, it's all skinny. So even though that wedge is there, because we're scaling it along the Y, you know, crunching it up here, you know, where we make it skinny, where it like pushes itself towards the edge more, we need to, you know, adjust for that. So we're gonna go here. You can see how thin that is. So again, it's like the size of the mesh isn't necessarily the size of the effect. It's like the size of your canvas for the effect. So we're gonna go to our pivot and just like really blow it up here. Let me look here. That's looking pretty dope. You know, it might be a little bit too fat. And you can do things with the texture too, where like maybe, you know, you want it to last a little bit longer, so we just scale out the texture a little bit. It'd be like a faster way of doing it. That's pretty tight. I'm actually kind of surprised how good this one turned out. So, and it's always hard because like some angles, like the fatness doesn't actually show through here, and then up here maybe it looks a little too fat. So that's just something you'll have to keep in mind. And again, I don't animate colors, but because we're just having some fun now, go through and show that you can do that. Just do that, just add the color. Same thing with here. You can see that's red. Actually, even make it more of a magenta at first. And 2 colors. Excuse me. Oh, there they are. Our dope sheet. Sure, I'm just selecting those 2. Put it back on the first frame here. And then down here, we're just kind of guessing a bit. We'll do a dark blue. Other one was magenta. It's kind of hard when you're starting with blue. Magenta. Let's just fade into violet as well. We'll take a glance at that. It's not changing too much. We may want to make our initial color a lot more like this. As we come through, some color changing. Not seeing it too much again, so we'll want to control our curves on that. Colors are another big pain in the butt because you have 3 values, like 4 actually with the alpha, and so you may want to script in a way to just, you know, look at a gradient. There's actually a built-in gradient tool for Unity, or even just have 2 colors on there and then just blend between them through a script, because it can be a huge pain to, you know, go through it all here. Like you can get some weird things where like the values don't like just like blend necessarily very well. That's looking really white now, but you know, if we were better at picking our colors, we could do that. It actually turned out pretty tight. Pretty happy with that. And again, it's like we have our startup from the attack, and then boom, we just have this like big impact. And it kind of hangs on there for a second. And it's kind of moving a little bit. It's like building up power, and then it like really just pops out of there and then fades out in a cool way. So for the moment, I think that's it. The main thing that was different from the previous tutorial is just about using these wedges and how good they can look, even if you might be worried about not being able to like texture the edge, like I mentioned. It just looks so sick, like the 3-dimensionality of it just looks really nice. Find some dudes. I think I have it on theirs too. Let's see. I forgot I had sound too. Not really show anything. Oh, there he goes. Anyway, thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, let me know. These assets will be made available on the Patreon. And usually I have a link to it, you know, hosted on my website on the YouTube vid, which will go up soon after this. Hopefully the sounds and everything were okay. If you have a request for a tutorial, please let me know. I'm trying to keep these shorter. Felt a little weird when I felt like it was kind of done already, but I'd rather these be shorter where people can just jump in, grab an effect. But I think we got to the meat of it right away, and so if people want to stop watching after that, that's great. And we just had some fun in the end. Thanks again. You know, I've recently launched a Patreon at patreon.com/cultureattack. If you like character action games or like character action game tutorials, you know, a lot of my games are going to be sort of in that vein, over the top action, flashy effects. If you want to support me or just check out the tutorials we have there, which is only going to be one at the moment because it's our first one, but we're going to be adding them as soon as we can, as frequently as we can rather. Thanks again for your support. Really appreciate it, honestly. And again, you can contact me at CAS_kicks on Twitter, where I am very often, and I love helping out with game dev if you have any questions. Thanks so much. Catch you later.